So Tesla has what I like to call a big boring problem, which is that they've become very ubiquitous now. And as the adoption curve continues to advance and you see more and more of them out there, I think it could become a fairly big problem for Tesla in the future. So stick with me, I'll explain what I mean. And let's get out there and let's drive.
That's right.
All right, so there's this thing out there called the adoption curve, which is this concept of when a new type of product launches, there is this initial slow kind of uptick in adoption of it as early adopters and people that are kind of willing to try out the bleeding edge of things starts to adopt them. And it takes a little bit of time for that to gain momentum before you start to see more widespread mainstream adoption of a technology or a new product. And this has been very common throughout history. You see this with things like televisions, with phones, of course, with mobile phones and smartphones, and even things like laptops and cars. And we are seeing the real-time effects of this start to play out now with electric cars in general and Tesla specifically. And so when you look at products like, let's take the iPhone, for example, when it first came out, it felt very revolutionary, completely game-changing, took the idea of a portable computer in your pocket that had always-on connectivity and access to your music, a great camera, putting all of these things into one device in your pocket. That was super new, revolutionary, and even though different attempts have been made at it, and there were some products out there already that were debatably just as good or maybe even better, Apple really just nailed the overall package, and you saw pretty quick, widespread adoption of it. But it all started off with much smaller scale, early adopter kind of bleeding edge adoption, and that is where it then sort of grew over time as they improved and iterated upon it, and you saw more and more adoption and iPhones getting into more and more people's hands. Now, flash forward about 15 years later, and you see that there's basically an iPhone in almost every single person's pocket, from people that would have been considered early adopters all the way up to more mainstream regular people. And the pace of that iteration and advancement has really slowed down considerably. And I think anyone would be pretty hard stretched to say that each new year of the iPhone is much of a revolution or too much of a difference from the previous year. And instead, you get this kind of continuous march toward progress in which each year gets slightly better, and over time that adds up more and more. And so an iPhone now feels considerably better than one maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, not so much year over year. And I think that's where Tesla's starting to get now. So when Tesla's first came out with the Model S, it felt like a completely new product. Sure, there were some EVs out there like the Leaf, the Mini Electric, and a few others, but the Model S was really the first truly luxury, flagship, desirable, upscale EV. And it definitely took some time for the adoption of that to spread out and to get into more and more people's hands. And you saw mostly the kind of people that were getting Model S's, especially because of the price point, were early adopters and people willing to take big risks, people that didn't need or people that already had multiple other cars and weren't as worried about range or battery anxiety with something new like an EV, people that could afford to put their own charging in at home, and the likewise. And as Tesla then expanded their lineup and got to the Model X, started to see this bleed out a little bit more into kind of people still in that same strata, but more with families and other in the additional capabilities of the X meant that it was appealing to a wider audience, but it's still a pretty small segment overall of the overall car market. Then when Tesla came out with the Model 3 and the Y, it's when they truly, I think, hit the perfect point of having a true mass market appeal car at an affordable price point. Even as the prices have fluctuated pretty considerably over the years, it's remained relatively affordable. And even though it's on that upper end of probably a lot of people's car buying ability, it's still definitely attainable enough. And I think the combination of features and just the overall desirability of it means that people are willing to spend a little bit more for it and kind of reach up for it. And so it's become a little bit of a status symbol, or maybe more just sort of a indication of people's socioeconomic status or their environmental consciousness, or even their support of a company like Tesla and Elon. But in the meantime, as the adoption of that has proliferated so much, I think what's happening now is Tesla's starting to lose a little bit of what made it special for early adopters and kind of those initial like techno enthusiasts who bought into the brand. Nowadays, you see Teslas just about everywhere. I mean, our neighbor got one recently, so we have two just on our little tiny street here. When we go to the daycare for our kids, there are usually up to like half a dozen various Teslas there, primarily 3s and Ys, actually mostly Ys since most people are carting around families. And when we go to our kids' hockey games, granted, more kind of affluent sport and in a pretty nice area here in northern New Jersey where there's definitely more money than on average, but there you'll just see anywhere up to like a dozen or even more Teslas throughout the parking lot there. And when we're driving around the road, we just see them all over the place. We play a game of count how many white Model Ys we can see on a single road, and it's always a shocking number. And so, I think as this is going along, what's really happened is that Tesla is sort of becoming just the default car for a lot of people. It's in a way replacing where I think the BMW 3 Series used to fit in, which was sort of this, appealing to the masses while being upscale and luxury and being a bit of a status symbol type of thing. And that means that, more and more people are just going straight to Tesla. And, it's not a bad thing for Tesla. That means that they're greatly increasing their market share. It means that they're continuing to remain, a very desirable brand. They're doing the right things in terms of long-term support and maintenance. They are absolutely leading the industry in terms of the charging network. And I think just, even feature-wise and everything, Tesla's done a great job through software updates and continuously iterating on the car to make it better and better. These are all the reasons that it's becoming so much more popular. Being popular is not at all a bad thing. It's a great thing for the company. They're going to sell more and more cars. Having more Teslas and EVs overall on the road over gas cars is definitely a good thing. And I think it's also changing people's driving habits probably in a positive way. Plus now with people moving to charging at home, it's encouraging more people to go solar and other renewable sources of energy. So for overall net benefit, it's certainly a positive thing out there. But when it comes to people like me that like to have kind of the newest and coolest thing, that like to be on the bleeding edge of things, I just think Tesla's becoming a little bit less appealing in that regard. But when you look back at it, the same thing was true for Apple and the iPhone. A few years into that, when it felt like everybody in the universe had an iPhone, I, along with a lot of other people, switched to Android, and I stuck with that for a few years. But now it's 2023, and the phone that's in my pocket here, it's an Apple one. So if there's anything that we can glean from that, I think Tesla's going to be in a great position, and having a default like this is not necessarily a bad thing for the brand, and it's a great thing for people who don't want to go through all of the nitty-gritty, nerdy details of every different EV that's out there. Some people want to default like the iPhone, and that's what they're going to go to, and other people can go to things that are maybe slightly better suited for them. So I'm excited to see how the industry continues to advance, how Tesla holds up to this, and what other moves competition makes to differentiate their brand and hopefully bring some other people to those as well. All right, well, with that, let me know down in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Is Tesla becoming boring? Maybe I'm just jaded because I've been with it too long now. So definitely let me know. And if you do agree, what other cars are you considering now? What's more appealing or less boring to you? All right, well, with that, thanks so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. I have a lot of people watching videos lately that are not subscribed, so I want to make sure that none of you miss any of the videos that I'm working on. With that, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you out there on the road.